I know exactly how you feel right now. Facebook ads can be extremely frustrating. There's so much different advice out there, so many outdated strategies. It can turn into a real headache to figure out how to set everything up that's the best for your specific business. And you're probably right now sitting with a bunch of questions that you have gotten different answers to. You're wondering what bid strategy you should use for your campaigns, how to structure your ad account, how much you should spend every day on your ads when you're starting out, how many ads you should test and how often you should be testing new ads, and how you can scale your campaign without seeing diminishing returns. In other words, how you can avoid the campaign turning unprofitable once you start increasing the daily ad spend. So trust me, I've been there. I've been through the whole process of watching a million different YouTube videos, doing online courses, and still sitting inside the ads manager, feeling confused, feeling like I'm lacking clarity and not really being sure what to do next in order to get the most optimal setup for my specific business. And I think the core problem here is that the advertising landscape just simply changes too frequently. There is constantly new changes coming out. Meta is changing how the ads manager is set up, what settings you have available, and that makes it so that a lot of the good advice, even the good advice, sometimes is just not relevant anymore. And also you have all these experts out there giving so much different advice based off stuff that's worked for them or their clients. But the truth of the matter is that that strategy will likely not work for your business because you have differences to your product or your service, or your business model might be slightly different, which makes that strategy just totally irrelevant for you. So in this video, I'm going to compress my 6 years of Facebook ads experience into one long but very informative, straightforward video so that I can help you get as close to the most ideal setup possible and making sure that you avoid all the headache, all the wasted time, money, and effort on figuring this out on your own. So this is going to be a 2025 updated video on what works the best right now and how you should set things up for your business based on your specific business model and what you're selling. And if this is the first video you're seeing on my channel, just want to let you know that I'm not just some random guy talking about Facebook ads here on YouTube. I've actually done this since 2018. So I have 6 years in this industry, and I started off my career within Facebook ads by scaling my mom's e-commerce business from nearly nothing to 1.8 million in yearly revenue. And we did that with a 58x ROAS. So extremely profitable campaigns. And since then I started my own agency, and I've now worked with over 20 different businesses all around the world, managing millions in ad spend. And I actually live and breathe Facebook ads on a day-to-day basis. And I have multiple business owners coming to me, paying me hundreds of dollars just to have a look at their ad account and give them advice on how to do it properly for them. And I'm not saying this to brag, but I just want to make sure that you can sit down, relax, and get through the whole video feeling very certain that you will learn something super valuable that you can take into your own business and get the best performance possible. Before we get started, this will be quite a long video. It will be a really deep dive into how to do everything correctly. So if you don't have the time right now, make sure you click the save button down below this video and come back to it later when you have more time. And also, I've gotten some feedback that in some cases I talk a bit slow. Now, if you don't know this, there's actually a speed up function on YouTube. So if you want to speed it up to 1.5 or even more, you can definitely do so. In addition to that, feel free to skip between the different segments and topics that I will talk about in this video. If you want to go straight to something that you know is more relevant for you right now, feel free to do so. I've added the chapters in the description of this video, and you should also be able to see them on the timeline. Now, this is what I will be covering in this video. So number one is the foundations of a strong ad account. This is extremely important. I've done a lot of audits where I've actually gone into ad accounts that have been advertising for thousands of dollars, but they just haven't had the correct setup from day one. So even if you're an experienced advertiser, make sure you just watch through it and can check off the different boxes in terms of having the proper ad account setup. Now, the second topic we're going to be talking about is data and metrics, and what to actually look at and what to focus on. So after this segment, I really hope that you have way more clarity on what to even look at when you go into the ads manager, avoid all of the data confusion, and sit there with actual clarity on what the next steps should be in order to improve your campaign performance. And this is extremely important. I still see so many business owners and advertisers just focus on the wrong metrics that's just leading them in the wrong direction. So make sure you watch this one carefully and take some notes as well. Now, for topic number 3, that's a really important one. And that's basically setting up your campaign the most optimal way. So campaign objective and budgeting for your specific business. Now, every business is different, and you need to make sure you set it up in a way that aligns with what you actually want for your business. And there's a lot we're going to get into here, but essentially, if you do this wrong, and I still see so many advertisers have the wrong setup here, you will at the end of the day end up with way worse results than you could been if you had the correct campaign setup from day one. So make sure you stick around and pay careful attention to topic number 3 as well. Number 4 is going to focus on how to analyze and optimize your ads as you go. Now, this one is really important. If you want to actually continuously improve meta ads, you need to iterate and constantly change the ads and the setup that you have. You need to feed it new and better ads. And I'm going to show you the exact setup that we use in Strand Media to get really good performance for our clients, and the proven strategy that we've used to constantly improve campaigns as we go. Because as you should know, meta ads is not something you set up one time and then you just let it run. It's actually something you need to come back to, test and improve again and again. And making sure you use the right system and the right strategy is absolutely essential if you want to continue to improve your performance. Now, on number 5, we're going to talk about the importance of creatives. As you probably know, creative is extremely important, and I'm going to talk you through with examples in practical terms how you can figure out what type of creatives will work the best for you, how you can come up with great ideas, execute on those ideas, and constantly be iterating and improving your creative strategy for the campaigns that you're running. Now, number 6 is a big one, and for a lot of you, this is going to be the most interesting one. It's essentially how you can scale your campaigns profitably without seeing the diminishing returns that so many advertisers do experience. You might have been trying this yourself. You increase the daily budget, but at some point you reach a volume of spend that is just not profitable for you anymore. And you start to see a drop in ROAS or an increase in cost per result. I'm going to talk you through why this happens, why it's so common, and what we are doing to bypass what we call the scaling cap and continuously being able to scale our clients beyond that, which ultimately takes companies to the next level. So let's get into the foundations of a strong ad account. Now, when you go into business.facebook.com and you go into your business settings in the left-hand corner, you should be able to go to your business info. So in my case, because I have an agency account here as an example, you will see business portfolio info. As you scroll down here, you will see some business details, but make sure that you have your business verified. So I verified my account a long time ago. This is extremely important. You just want to make sure that you're verified because that will allow you to not get banned as easily. So if you have ads that are not being approved, stuff like that, you want to make sure that you're verified. It's just going to make everything a lot simpler for you. So make sure you set that up correctly. Make sure you have two-factor authentication turned on. That's really important for security of your ad account. Just something that you need to have set up. Also make sure all the info here is correct. The email that you have put in here is actually one that you use so that if Meta wants to send you some information or give you an update on some ads that didn't get approved or some information about payment or anything like that, so that you get notified. Now, next, we're going to go into the ad account section and make sure that your ad account is set up the right way. So again, I'm just using this as an example to show you how to set everything up. Firstly, we want to make sure that we have the payment methods set up properly. Now, this is extremely important. Obviously, you need to pay for the ads that you run on Meta, but there's actually something here that I see a lot of businesses skip, and that is having a backup payment method set up. Now, as you can see inside billing and payments, here I have a payment threshold. Now, this one can be increased over time. Now, when you start out, this payment threshold will be probably lower than what you want. It essentially means that Meta is going to take your money at a certain threshold. And this simply means that once you reach a certain amount in terms of how many impressions you've got, the cost of that will be deducted from your payment method. So in the beginning, it will happen quite frequently because Meta just wants to make sure that you're using a payment method that will actually cover the amount of impressions that you've been getting. So over time, as you build trust with Meta, you can increase this threshold so you don't have a bunch of receipts that you need to give to your accounting every month. And it just makes everything much simpler. But once you start out, this will happen quite frequently, but over time you should be able to increase this threshold. Now, as you can see on this account, I also have a daily spending limit set by Meta. So when you're starting out, you will have a limit of how much you can spend on ads. That is normal, and that will increase over time. The more you spend and the more time you're advertising, the more this limit will increase. So keep an eye on this. If you're not able to spend the amount that you want right now, you just have to be patient. Now, under payment methods, I have PayPal here by default, but you can also add more payment methods. And I highly recommend to set up a backup payment method just in case the default one does not work. Because if Meta tries to charge you, but it's not able to do so, and you end up having an outstanding bill that you haven't been paying, that can firstly turn into Meta shutting down your ads, which is really bad because if you shut down the ads, all of a sudden it's going to stop the momentum of those campaigns that you have, which will hurt your performance, but it will also stop your advertising, which is probably not good for your business. And second, the more often these things happen, the worse the relationship between your ad account and Meta is going to be. That can turn into you ultimately getting banned easier than if you always pay on time. Now, lastly, you want to make sure that you control your account spending limit. If you want to put a limit on how much your account can spend, just to make sure that if you have, somebody in your business or an agency running your ad account and you want to make sure they don't go over a certain limit in terms of your monthly budget, then you can set that in here. But we usually leave this open. We are always in control of how much we spend, but mistakenly putting an extra zero behind your daily budget can quickly turn into some issues for your business. So if you're a business owner and you want to control this, you can put a limit within your account. Now, another advice that I will give you that you will probably not see a lot of other places is actually setting up an additional backup ad account. As you can see within here, I can click the blue add button and I can create a new ad account and basically put in your business name. And then next to the name, you just put backup. Then you insert your time zone. Then you insert your currency, click next, make sure you select your business and just go through the steps and confirm. Now, this is probably something that you will not need to use, but in case something happens, having a backup ad account with an added payment method to it could be a lifesaver. And we actually had this happen for some clients and they were really grateful they had a backup ad account so that they can continue to use that and advertise even though the main one got blocked because of some security issues. So make sure you set that up. There is no downside of having a backup ad account and I will highly recommend you set one up. It's very easy. Lastly, you should have the proper tracking setup. So we're going to go to Events Manager and within here, you're going to go to Data Sources and inside Data Sources, select your pixel. If you don't have one yet, then you need to set one up and make sure you set up the tracking correctly from day one. All the data that you're sending Meta when you start to advertise is extremely important that is accurate. If it's not, it's going to lead the algorithm in the wrong direction and it's going to hurt your performance a lot. We've actually had quite a lot of instances when we onboard a new client and we go through the tracking setup and we see that because of either a change in the Shopify team or something like that the initial tracking stopped working. And that just makes it so much harder to have good performance with Meta ads. If you can train the algorithm by sending it high quality data based on what you actually want for your business, then you're going to have much better performance. So as an example, just to show you what a good tracking setup looks like, as you can see, there's a score next to event match quality for all of these events that is being tracked for one of our e-commerce clients here. Now, the most important thing here is that you have a good event match quality for what you ultimately want. So in this case, for this e-commerce business, it's the purchase event. As you can see, we're sending with both browser and the conversion API, and we have a 9.1 out of 10 match quality. Now, without getting too technical here, it basically means that we're sending multiple parameters back to Meta from our website. So as you can see here, we're sending the value of the conversions, the order ID, currency, content ideas. So Meta actually knows what type of product that customer bought. And we can send that data back to Meta so that they understand what kind of products are performing, the value of those products, so the actual price that they bought it for, content ideas, all of these parameters are being sent back to Meta, which is extremely valuable. And if we click view details, we can also break it down and we can see the event coverage. In here, you see we have 100%. So this is a great setup. If we go to event quality, again, you see we have a really great quality and the customer information that we're sending back, email, IP address, user agent, phone number, external ID, zip code, country, first name, last name, city, and click ID. These are all things that we're sending back to Meta to make sure it can match that conversion with an actual user on Facebook or Instagram. That will allow the targeting to become better over time. So the better you have this tracking set up from day one, the faster your campaign optimization is going to improve your overall targeting and performance. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is how to actually set up the different columns inside the Ads Manager so that when you go in here and you analyze your performance, you actually know what to focus on. So firstly, let's set up the columns that you need to focus on. So if we go to columns, and as you can see by default, this is just a Meta performance setup. But what we want to do is to customize the columns to show us the metrics that we want to focus on. Now for e-commerce specifically, I use the e-commerce funnel view, and this is a custom view that I've set up myself. So if you want to go ahead and just copy this, make sure you copy all of these ones that I have on the right side. So first I have delivery, then the ad set name, attribution setting, bid strategy, budget, how much we've spent, the frequency of that campaign. Now, frequency is an important metric to focus on because it tells us on average how often people that we're targeting are seeing our ads. Then we have the results. So how many sales or leads we have, if whatever that means, could mean different thing depending on how you've set up the campaign. But we have that one here. Then we have cost per result. So how much it costs us to get each result. Then for e-commerce, again, it's important to have ROAS, right? How much money do you get back per dollar spent on ads? So I selected the website purchase ROAS. You don't need to select the in-app purchase ROAS. That's only if you're advertising for an app. Then we want to get into the actual funnel view. So we want to see how many impressions we have, how many outbound clicks we get from those impressions. And those two metrics together create the outbound click-through rate. Now, it's really important that you select outbound click-through rate and not just click-through rate, because outbound means that they're clicking to actually get onto your website or your landing page. If you just select the normal click-through rate, so no outbound, that means any click. So if they clicked onto your Facebook page, or if they clicked on the ad in any other way to get your Instagram page or whatever, that's also considered a click. But we just want to focus on the clicks that leads user to where we want them to go, so the landing page. Now, after somebody clicks, what we should be tracking is the landing page view. So an actual track off platform, so off Meta on our website of a landing page view. Now, the next step after landing page view is then adding to cart. So that's the next step in the funnel, ideally, that we want to happen. So then we track how many of these landing page views actually turn into people adding the products to cart. Then how many of these actually initiate the checkout? So how many are interested enough to go to the next step and start the checkout process? And how many of the people that start the checkout process actually become website purchases? So as you can see, that's the next column that I have here. And then what's the total value of all of those purchases? That's a good metric to look at because that ties into this metric right here, which is the AOV, or the average purchase conversion value. Now, if we see that some offers or ads have higher AOV than others, then that's a good indication that whatever we are advertising is leading to a higher AOV. So it's a good metric to keep track on. Then we have CPM, which essentially means the cost of advertising, or how much it costs us to get 1,000 impressions. Now, this one is good to look at because it ties into a lot of these other metrics. If the cost of advertising is increasing, that's going to affect the performance of all of those other metrics. So understanding how the CPM develops, and when you break down your results, looking at how it's changed over the last 7-14 days as you look at the other metrics as well, can give you a better understanding of what is actually happening. And this is really key because we want to understand if there's something externally that's changed the performance, or if it's actually something that we can control. So if the cost of advertising is increasing because of the pressure on the advertising platforms, for example, under Q4, very common the CPMs go up because so many companies are increasing their daily budgets, then that's something we cannot really control. Now, to be clear, there are many other things that can affect your CPM as well, such as quality ranking, which is essentially Meta figuring out the quality of your ads and how relevant it is for the people that you're targeting. So if you have a good conversion rate between getting an impression and that impression turning into a sale, then that could give you a lower CPM as well. But the reason why I like to include it is to understand if the CPM is rising, we can actually then break it down and try to understand the reason behind that. And in many cases, that could be because there's more pressure on the advertising platform. So keep that one in there. It's a good metric to look at. But another one that ties into CPM is the frequency. So if you start to saturate the audience that you're targeting and less people are converting, then that's going to lower your quality score. And again, that's going to increase the CPMs. So just be mindful of how these metrics are set up and try to not get too confused, but it's just good things to look at in order to better understand your performance. Now, once you have all of these metrics selected, it should be much easier for you to actually break down the results and understand what is going on. So I'm now going to give you an example of how to do this and how I use this on a day-to-day basis. So as an example, I'm going to show you how to set up this view. So we're going to first go to columns, customize columns, and then initially what we want is delivery, ad set name, bid strategy, budget, I want to remove last significant edit because I don't think it's necessary. Attribution settings, nice to have. Then you want to have cost per result next to results. It's just easier to look at it that way. Don't need to look at reach, but impressions we want to have. Quality ranking, you can keep it in there, but I like to take it away just to keep things more clear. And then instead, if I want to break down to understand further, then I add that one in later on. Same with engagement rate ranking and conversion rate ranking. Then you want to make sure you put ROAS in there. So just search for ROAS, total, and then just only select website purchase ROAS. And I like to put this one right next to cost per result. Amount spent, I like to keep pretty high up because it gives me a good indication of where the algorithm is prioritizing to put my money. So I like to put that one right here. Another one that is great is frequency. So we're going to find that one here. And frequency, I also like to have a little bit higher up here to understand how often people are seeing my ads within that campaign, ad set, or ad. Now we're going to look at how to set up the rest of the funnel. So next to impressions, I want to see how many of these impressions actually turn into outbound link clicks. So search for outbound and click outbound clicks. Then make sure you put that one next to impressions. Now next to that, I want to see the outbound click-through rate. So as you can see, it's already here. So select this one and put that one next to outbound clicks. So we also have a bit of an understanding of how much volume of data we have to make up that percentage. Because if it's very few clicks, then it's not going to be as a reliable metric to look at. So this is going to be the next step of the funnel. After the click, we should track the landing page view. So make sure you put this one right next to the click-through rate. Now the next step in the funnel is adding to cart. So we're going to search for add to cart, total. Then we're going to make sure we only select the website add to carts. And we put this one after landing page views. The next step is initiate checkout. We select total and then we only use the website one. And then we put that one right next to add to cart. And the last step of the funnel is, of course, purchases. So add purchases. We're only going to look at website purchases. And then we're going to put it next to initiate checkout. Now, as an e-commerce business, we definitely do care about the value here as well. So make sure you tick off the purchase conversion value and then only select the website purchase value and then put that one next to purchases. Sometimes it's hard to arrange all of these, but once you've set it up once, you don't need to do it again. Now, ROAS now all of a sudden appear down here, so we need to rearrange this one. I like to have this one really high up because it's a really important KPI to keep track of. So I like to put it next to amount spent. Now, the next one I want to look at here is the average order value to understand the average value per order that we get based on a different ad level, ad set level, or campaign level. So if we advertise different products or different offers, I want to understand how that affects the average order value because that's something that ties really into creating the ROAS number. A lot of businesses are actually held back from scaling because they don't have a high enough average order value. So we want to get that one in there for sure. So as you can see, this one is the one you want to select. So average purchases conversion value. And then make sure you put that one after purchase conversion value, the total number. And then the last one, we want to understand the conversion rate for the different variables in our campaigns. So if you search up rate and you scroll down, you should be able to see purchases rate per link clicks. So if you add this one in here and put that one after average order value. And then the last metric to put in is the CPM. So search for CPM and then the last one there. Now, before you click apply, make sure you save as column preset and then give it the name e-commerce funnel view. Click save and there you go. So as you can see, now we have all of these columns selected and we can now break down the results. So let's do that together. So to give you less of a headache, if you want to focus on one specific campaign, you can select that campaign, go to the search bar, go down to filter by row selections. And now we're only looking at the ones that we've selected, but the ones in draft also shows up, but this one doesn't have data. So this gives us less data confusion because we have less data to look at and more to focus. By doing that, it's just simpler to focus on one campaign at a time to break down the data. Now, when I go in to analyze the results, initially we do see the 49 purchases. Then we see the cost per purchase, the amount spent. Then we have the ROAS, right? So now we have two ROAS numbers, both the total one and the website purchase ROAS, but it's the same. So then you see how many impressions we got from the budget we used. So a little over 100 impressions, and that turned into a little over 3,400 clicks. This gives us a click-through rate or outbound click-through rate of 3.42%. Now, as you can see, of the 3,463 people that clicked, we actually got a little bit less landing page views. So not everybody actually landed on the page. And there is always going to be a certain drop-off there. It's not going to be massive, but that's why we also want to track landing page views, because that's what actually matters to us in terms of understanding how many users or how many sessions these clicks turns into, because that ties into the conversion rate you see in your e-commerce store. So we want to better understand and have an align setup with that conversion rate. So we see 3,285 people actually landed on your landing page or on the website. Of those, 378 added a product to cart, one or more products to cart. Of those, 194 people actually started the checkout process. And of those 194 checkouts started, 49 turned into customers. And as you can see, of those 49 purchases, that turned into 114,000 Norwegian kroners in conversion value. So actually sales in your e-commerce store. And on average, that means 2,345 Norwegian kroners per purchase. So we can understand the average order value here. And the total conversion rate for this funnel is 1.41%. So from the click to the conversion, it's a 1.41%. Now, next to that, we see the frequency. So we see that on average, the people we are targeting in this period, so we're looking at this month, people are seeing ads 3.5 times on average. So as you can see, there's definitely some retargeting happening within this campaign, because on average, people are seeing the ads almost, a little bit more than 3.5 times. And then we have the CPM, which is just under 100 Norwegian kroners per 1,000 impressions. And that's also a good metric to looking at to understand how all of these results are built up. So now let me show you an example of how I would break down these results to understand how things are developing. So up here where you select the period you're looking at, you can select, let's say, for example, the last 7 days. And then we can also compare to the previous 7 days to see how things are developing. Now, as we can see on the results, if we expand here, we have 13 less purchases in the last 7 days. So things have been dropping off. So let's now break it down to see why we think that is. So the first thing I'm looking at is how much more or less are being spent. And there's actually been a slight increase in spend, almost nothing. So the same amount of money is being spent, but we're getting 56% less purchases. So we definitely need to figure out what is going on here. This has led to a drop in ROAS of 63% in the last 7 days, which is not good. So let's look at what is going on here. So if we look at the amount of impressions, we can see that we're actually getting almost the same amount. It's actually a 1.2% increase in impressions, which is very little. So that is not the problem. We're still getting the reach on Meta and Instagram that we previously have been. But for some reason, a lot less of these people are converting. So now let's try to pinpoint where people are dropping off. So how many outbound clicks are we getting from these impressions? That's already a 12% drop-off point there. So it's not massive, but the ads are definitely a little bit less effective as we get less clicks. Now, this ties into the click-through rate or the outbound click-through rate, which is also down by almost the same percentage, which makes sense. But it's not down massively. It's only 13%. And because of that, I think there's something more at play here than just the effectiveness of the ad. So let's continue to break this down. Now, in terms of landing page views, still not a huge change there. Let's go to add to cart and see how many people added to carts. Here we have a big percentage drop off. So a lot less people are adding to cart. And this could mean that maybe some products that usually get bought quite frequently are now out of stock. So when people go in to buy them, they see it's out of stock and they do not add to cart. So you see how I'm using this data to create situations or potential hypotheses in my head to understand where the problem currently lies. So that is one thing I would look at there. There's almost a 40% drop off between landing on the page to adding to cart compared to the last 7 days. That's a pretty massive drop off. So that's definitely something to look more into. But let's continue to see if there's any other factors at play here. So of the people that add to cart, let's see how many checkouts that are being initiated. As we can see, there's also a big drop off here. We can see that there's actually 64% less people that start the checkout process. So obviously, because a lot less people are adding to cart, a lot less people can start the checkout process. So there's a big drop in percentage there as well. So if we then look at the conversion rate between the click and the actual purchase, we see it's down 50%. So big drop off there. And if we then look at the frequency, that one hasn't changed a lot. It's very similar. And CPM, how much has that one changed? Yeah, almost nothing. So there's definitely something happening here on the website. People are still coming in there, but they're not adding to cart and they're not completing their checkout. So that might mean something is out of stock. Maybe some color is out of stock. So that's essentially how I would start looking at this, because all of the other metrics look pretty similar to the previous 7 days. But there's always the case that when you're looking at smaller data numbers, there could be just some anomalies. So just simply random stuff happening. So we might not panic over this, but this example is why it's important to break down the metrics to understand where the current bottleneck is. Because if the ad is still as effective or close to as effective of getting in, traffic to your website, but after people go to the website, that's where things are dropping off, then it might mean that something has changed there and it's not as effective anymore. Now, products being out of stock could be one reason for this. Another reason could be that they have taken away an offer on the website that they previously had running, and these were just evergreen campaigns going into the website. So that could definitely be something that makes people less likely to add to cart and start the complete checkout process. But it looks like we're still having as effective ads in terms of getting people into the store. But when they get in there, they're not actually completing the purchase. So might be less urgency, might be products that are not in stock anymore. So this is how we break it down and understand the performance. So hopefully this gives you a bit of an indication of how to look at these metrics, so that once you go in there, you don't get a headache. You actually know what to focus on and how to break down the results. Now, once we are analyzing campaign performance, another thing that's really great to look at is the breakdown section here, where you go down to demographics and audience segments. Now, as an example here, I broke it down for this ad account. And as you can see, of the 10 purchases coming from this campaign, we can see how many of these purchases came from new audience. Now, that means these are people that are not existing customers and they have not engaged with your store, your website, or your social media before. So they're brand new. Then we have 4 purchases coming from existing customers. So that tells us that this campaign and the ads within this campaign is also going to existing customers. And then we have 1 purchase coming from an engaged audience. And that means somebody that's not an existing customer, but they have probably seen your brand before. They've probably been following you on social media. They've seen ads in the past. So these are like lukewarm people that then turn into a customer. So by breaking it down like this, we can see how much new customer acquisition this campaign is doing, how much retargeting it is doing to re-engage existing customers, and how much converting this campaign is doing of the part of the audience that is already slightly warmed up. In order to actually see this breakdown, you have to set up audience segments yourself. So I'm now going to show you how to do that. So the first thing you're going to do is click all tools, and then you're going to go to advertising settings. Then when you're in here, you're going to go to audience segments right here. Now inside audience segments, you first want to set up the engaged audience. You want to define what is an engaged audience. So my suggestion is to have between 30 to 60 days of the people that added to cart, the last 30 to 60 days of people that viewed your website. In addition to that, what you can add is the people that interact with your social media. So if you're very active organically on social media, you can have the people that in the last 30 to 60 days interacted with your Instagram or Facebook account. And that way we can better understand how many purchases came from people that also engage with you on social media, as well as interacting with your website. Now, in terms of the existing customers, this will be number one, the conversion tracking that you have on Meta. So a custom audience based off of the people that purchased in the last 180 days. But in addition to that, you want to upload all of your historic data, and you can set up this automatically with different tools. But if you don't know how to do this with Klaviyo as a custom audience tool, which is a bit technical, you can then just simply download a list from your Shopify store and manually update it on a regular basis. So for this ad account, the client have been doing this himself. He's been downloading the list, uploading it here, and basically all of the historic data that he have up to the date that he put in will be used to define existing customers. Now the thing here is this one should be updated at least on a monthly basis, so that when we break down audience segments, we have a really accurate understanding of how many purchases is coming from existing customers. That's really key to understand, so that we know how to allocate the budget for the campaign towards getting new customers and engaging existing customers, because that's really important. We want to make sure that we prioritize the budget to what is giving us the most incremental amount of sales. So a bit technical there. There's more videos on my channel about Facebook ads incrementality. We're going to get slightly into it in this video as we get deeper into the campaign setup. So just stick around for that. Now, once you've set this up, you just click confirm. If you have a different business model where you have leads or people that can interact with specific pages on your website, you can also set that up in a custom way. So I'm not going to go through how to do that for every type of business. Essentially, what you want to make sure is that you have a way of breaking down the results to understand where your budget and where your ads are going in terms of how warm audiences are being targeted. Are they existing customers? If most of your advertising spend is going towards existing customers and you already know that you're doing like email marketing, SMS marketing, and a lot of other efforts to engage existing customers, then there might be a lot of overlap there. So being able to break it down and understand if you're having a lot of overlap with other efforts that you're doing is really key. So make sure you set this up in a way that allows you to break down and understand where your advertising dollars are going. Now, the next thing we're going to focus on is the actual attribution setting of the campaign. Now, if this sounds too technical or if you're losing me here, stick around. I'm going to break it down really, really simple. Initially, we need to understand what is the attribution setting. So essentially, the attribution setting is telling us when and how a purchase should be credited to the campaign. So if a sale is coming in your store or you're getting a lead, we need to have a rule set up for if that sale should be credited to the campaign or not, and the definitions around that. So when is it going to be credited to the campaign and when is it not going to be credited? So as you can see for this campaign here, we have 7-day click and 1-day view as the attribution setting. That means if anybody sees an ad within this campaign, clicks on it, and becomes a customer inside a 7-day period since they clicked, then that sale should be credited to the campaign and it should appear as one result here. Now, in addition to that, if somebody sees an ad within this campaign without clicking on it, they just see it, but they purchase the same day they saw it, that should also be credited to the campaign. So that in that instance, it would also appear here under your results. Now, understanding where these results are coming from in terms of the two different attribution settings here, 7-day click or 1-day view, we can actually then break it down to give us a more in-depth understanding of where the results are coming from. Are people actually clicking on our ads and buying within 7 days? Or are most of them just viewing but buying the same day? That's really key. And I'm going to explain to you why that's super important to understand. So if you go to columns and you go down and you compare attribution settings in the bottom here, we can select 7-day click and then 1-day view. And then we can click apply. And as we can see in the last 7 days, all the results are coming from people that are actually clicking on the ad. Now, if we look at the longer time period, so let's say the last 30 days, we can see that the majority again is coming from the 7-day click attribution setting. Only 8 are coming from people that bought the same day as they viewed the ad. Now, this is really key. And the reason this is key to understand is because if this was the other way around, if 81 purchases were coming from the 1-day view attribution only, and only 8 were coming from the 7-day click attribution, that to me would be a big red flag. The reason for that is if people aren't clicking on the ad, then it's less likely the ad was what made the person buy the product or become a customer. Now, I've audited hundreds of ad accounts, and in the ad accounts where I see a lot of sales going to the 1-day view attribution setting, that's usually a sign of massive overlap with other advertising efforts. So what happens is over time, Meta starts placing ads in front of people that are likely to convert that same day, but convert because they have interacted with the website or other parts of the business in other ways. Okay, so over time, the algorithm can be really good at figuring out when to place an ad in front of someone so that it can take credit for that sale, even though that was not the ad that initiated or did the heavy lifting of making sure somebody then became a customer. So if you're unsure if you have overlap, break down your results. Understand how the different attribution settings can tie into being signs of overlap, because it's really key. At the end of the day, it's a much stronger correlation between an actual click and a sale than a view and a sale. So how do you actually set up a campaign in a way that aligns with your ultimate business goals, what you actually want for your business? I'm going to give you an example here of how to set it up. So initially, let's click create. And let's say you run an e-commerce company first. So first, I'm going to show you how to do this as an e-commerce business. You definitely want to select the sales objective. Click continue. Now, I like to do the manual sales campaign because of how we do the testing, and we like to be in control as much as possible in terms of these setups. So click continue. Now, I'm not going to give this campaign a name, but you definitely would give it a name in your case. Then down here, we're going to tick off Advantage plus Catalog for this campaign. But this is something that you might want to consider running if you have a high SKU e-commerce business. If you have a bunch of different products, actually having one campaign where you only use catalog ads. So you integrate all of your products with your catalog and then run that through ads. That is something that could work really well if you have a lot of products. Reason for that is over time, the algorithm is going to be really good at figuring out what products to show to what users on Facebook and Instagram. And when the timing of when to show the ad and what to show in the ad gets really good, then that campaign can become super effective. And it will also minimize friction because it will show exactly what that person is interested in, and they will click on the ad, which will take them directly to the landing page of that specific product. So make sure you consider setting up a campaign with the Advantage Plus catalog ads if you have a high SKU store. Now we're just going to continue to scroll down. I'm not going to select any of the other settings here. We're going to click next. Now in this example, I have not set up the Facebook shop. So we're just going to go with the website. If you have a Facebook shop, you can definitely set that up as well. But just to keep this example as simple as possible, we're just going to go with the website. Then under performance goal, this is extremely important. And this is where you should pay extra close attention. Right here, it's really important that if you have multiple different products in your store, or essentially just more than one product with different price points and different margins, you want to maximize for value of conversions. Now, as you can see in my case, this one is grayed out, and that's because this is just an example account and I don't have data on value of conversions. I just have one conversion event, which is booking and calls with me. So that's why you don't see this one active. But if you have enough value data, in other words, if you have been sending the conversion value back to Meta based on your tracking over time and you have sent enough data, then you should be able to tell Meta, hey, prioritize the highest value customers. So the people on average that completes purchases with higher average order values. And that is going to give you higher ROAS over time because you're going to prioritize putting your ads in front of people that completes higher value orders. But if this one is grayed out for you as well, you want to start with maximize number of conversions. Then you're going to select what was previously known as your pixel, which now goes under dataset. So make sure you have the right one selected. And here it's extremely important that you select the conversion event that you actually ultimately want. So not adding add to cart, not adding initiate purchase, but adding actual purchases. So again, this is an example ad account. So I don't have this event as an active event that I'm currently tracking, but you would essentially select purchase if you have an e-commerce site. And if you're doing lead generation, what you want to optimize for is either schedule in a call with you, or more ideally, actually the people that become a client. Now, if you don't have a lot of data on that and you do really high ticket service, such as I do, then you will have very, very limited data to send back to Meta in terms of who turned into a client. In that case, I would optimize for people that book in calls and it turned out to be a qualified call. So anytime you have a qualified lead, you would send that back to Meta and let them know, hey, this person that came through the lead form or the landing page that you used was a qualified lead. Continue to optimize to find more people like that. So how you would do that is then set up an event, make sure you send that data back to Meta, and then select that event as the conversion event you use for the campaign. So in my case, I'm going to use the active event I have here, which is invite meeting scheduled. So people that actually schedule a meeting with me. But again, that's just an example to show you how to set things up. If you were to select maximize value of conversions, what you would see here is the ROAS goal. So you could put in a ROAS goal that you want Meta to aim for. Now, if you leave this one open, you would use the highest volume bid strategy. That means that based on the budget you give Meta, you just tell Meta to give you as many conversions as possible for that budget. You're not giving it any indication of what profitability you need or what cost you can afford per purchase or what ROAS you can afford. Now, when you're starting out, it's okay to leave this one open because you need to initially have some data to give Meta so that Meta can understand what is a realistic cost per result or ROAS for you based on the people that you're targeting. So when you're starting out, you might as well just leave this one open. But over time, as you start to have more data in your ad account, more historic data, you can set up a new campaign where you would use the cost control bid strategy. So if you set a cost per result goal or ROAS goal, you would essentially then switch from highest volume to a cost control bid strategy. So you're actually adding a cost control to the way Meta is bidding for your campaign. Now we're going to get more into this in the last section of this video where we're talking about scaling. But right now you just need to understand that if you're starting out, leave this one open. But over time, it's very, very beneficial for you to actually tell Meta what kind of cost you can afford or what ROAS you need to hit, at least to not lose money on your campaigns. Now, when we click show more options on the blue one here, we can go to attribution setting and we can edit this one. Now, initially, again, if you're starting out, just leave all of this as they are because you really want to send as much data back to the campaign as possible. But in some cases, as I talked about, including the view attribution can cause overlap with other marketing efforts you're doing. In that case, I would only allow the 7-day click attribution. So let's say you're running heavy on another platform, maybe TikTok, maybe Google Ads, top of funnel. In that case, I would just select none. And for view through, I would select none and only do the click. That's because we only want the campaign to optimize to show our ads to people that click and convert within a 7-day period. If they just view the ad, we don't want the campaign to continue to optimize for people that just view and convert. We want to send Meta in the direction of optimizing for clicks because we know there's a stronger correlation between a click and a purchase than any of the view attributions. But if you're just starting out, you just want to send as much data as possible back to Meta. So you're going to allow this one on. But in the future, if you want to avoid overlap and you want to use a stronger data signal to send to the optimization process of the campaign, then you would essentially turn this one off. Now, I'm not going to use dynamic creative with this setup. We're going to talk about how to set your budget. If you're very limited on budget, you should at least set a daily budget that equates to your average order value. So on average, what is the value that people complete purchases with in your store? That is the same amount you should set as your daily budget per ad set. So now we are inside the ad set. Here is where we put the budget. And if you want to run with the minimum budget you can, at least do your average order value. If you want a more sophisticated model in terms of building out your budget, you want to optimize for the type of budget that gives you at least 50 conversion events within a 7-day period. So in order to calculate that, you would essentially need to understand what is your CPA, your cost per acquisition, or your cost per purchase. Then take your CPA times 50 because we need 50 conversion events in a 7-day period to get out of what Meta calls learning limited. So Meta really values volumes of data, so at least 50 conversion events, but that data also needs to come in pretty fresh. It needs to be fresh data, so within a 7-day period. So CPA times 50 divided by 7. That's going to give you the daily budget per ad set because the learning limited happens on the ad set. If you don't have 50 conversion events per ad set in a 7-day period, then you're going to be in learning limited. You want to get out of learning limited, then use the formula that I just gave you, and that should be your daily budget per ad set. Now, as we scroll further down and we get to audience controls, you can click edit. Then you want to make sure, first and foremost, you're targeting the location that you want. For the age, make sure the age makes sense. And when we scroll further down to advantage plus audience, you can switch back to the original audience. Now you have a little bit more control. Obviously, Meta really tries to avoid us to make as many changes as possible. They want to control how you set things up. But because we know what we're doing, you're watching this video, you understand Meta ads better and better for every minute you watch this video, you can now switch that one off and you can just follow what I'm saying next. So under the advantage detailed targeting, you can give some suggestions to Meta in terms of what interest you think your audience would also be interested in. So as an example, let's say with this campaign, I'm targeting people interested in basketball. So I can then put in basketball. Basketball as a sport, as you can see, this one is an interest. Make sure you don't choose the job title. It should be interest. As you can see, the job title is a very small audience size here of 210,000 to 246. The interest one has hundreds of millions. So big difference. Make sure you don't make that mistake. Then we select that one. And now Meta will continue to give us some relevant suggestions. So you can just scroll through this and see if it makes sense to add them in, or you can search for them and add them in here. Now, if you're in the early days of advertising on Meta, this will at least give a slight indication to where Meta is going to start to look for your ideal customers, right? So if it doesn't have historic data yet, this might be beneficial just to send Meta in the right direction initially. But as you can see by reading this message right here, Meta will be able to expand your audience beyond these interests to improve your performance. So this will just be suggestions. and it will help Meta initially, but over time it will start to take control itself. It will have more data points than we can even imagine to match up with people that click on your ad, interact with your ad, add to cart and purchase and all those events. And it will quickly be better than you at figuring out who are more likely to buy. But this is a good way to start out, just to quickly let the optimization process start targeting people in the right direction. Now for placements, we want to allow all placements, so we don't need to do anything else there. And the next step is going to be setting up the ad. Now this is where we actually set up the ad, and I'm not going to show you how to do that. You would do that yourself by choosing the format here, so either single image or video. You can also use the flexible format, the carousel or the collection format. Usually we only use carousel, single image or video. Then under here is where you would set in the image or the video. Then you would add the URL to your landing page or your website. And ideally, if you're advertising a specific product or a specific offer, you want to minimize the friction. So put the URL that leads people directly to the offer that they saw in the ad. Then just make sure the tracking is set up properly. As you can see, we have that one set up. It's active. And then you can also put in URL parameters down here if you want to further track stuff on the back end, either in Google Analytics or within your Shopify store or whatever tracking tool you're using. But this is not really necessary. You will still be able to see results in your ads manager because we have the data set or the pixel setup. This is just the add-on that you can do if you want to better understand on the back end in Google Analytics or in your whatever tracking software you're using to see where the traffic is coming from. So the next thing I'm going to talk a little bit about is how to actually analyze your performance to understand how to continue to optimize as you go. So I'm now inside an example ad account again. I'm looking at the last 14 days for this campaign right here. As you can see, we have 5 purchases, and I'm now going to look at the ads, which ones are performing and which ones are not. So first I like to look at the results, break down. So I have all the ads with results in the top here. As we can see, this one right here has 2 purchases. And we look at the CPA, it is very similar to all of the other ads. So as an example, I'm just going to show you how to think about what to cut and what to allow to stay in your campaign as you optimize and prioritize which ads to continue to run with. As you can see here, we have the top ad here with 4 purchases. Then we have one with just 1 purchase here and another ad with 1 purchase here. If we look at the cost per result, this one has the highest cost per result. And these 2 have a lot lower CPA, but these ones have a lot less volume. That's why I will not cut this one, and I will allow these 2 to stay active as well. Now, the reason for that is even though this one has a lot higher CPA or cost per result, this is more reliable data. And that's something you need to consider when you analyze your results. If I were to cut this one off and then more spend will naturally go into these other ads, that does not mean that these ads will continue to have the CPA when they get more volume. So in order for us to prioritize any of these ads more than this one, so basically cut this one and only push budget into these, we need the same level of spend. So as you can see, the differences in impression, this one in this time period we're looking at is a little bit over 3,500 impressions. This one doesn't even have 1,000, right? It has a low CPA, but based on very little data. And this is also why this top ad here with 4 purchases continues to get most of the spend, because Meta is looking at more data points than just the conversion event, the ultimate conversion event, which in this case is website purchases. Meta is actually also taking into consideration all the other data points, such as how many people are interacting, clicking with the ad, the different click-through rates, and all of those other data points that you're not thinking about is something Meta is taking into account when it prioritizes where to put your budget. Now, the only situation where I would turn off this ad is if the $256 CPA is way too much in order to stay profitable. Then I would simply cut it because it's just not profitable. We need to optimize in a way so that we can continue to run profitable ads on Meta. So in that case, I will cut this one off and then I would see how these develop. But again, be very careful because it's very likely these ones would not outperform this one, okay? So in a situation where this one wasn't profitable, what you could do instead is go to the ad set, and then instead of using the highest volume, you can click edit, and then you can go down and you can put in a cost per result goal. If I were to put in a cost per result goal, in this case of 200 USD, then Meta would be forced over time to limit the spend that's going to that ad because that one has a CPA of more than 250. Okay, so by adding that goal in here, you would push Meta towards trying out the other ads more in order to find one that gets you a CPA that is profitable and will allow the campaign to still spend money. Because at the end of the day, Meta wants to spend your money. That's the ultimate goal of Meta. That's how they make money, is if you continue to spend money on their platform. So by adding in a cost per result goal, you would incentivize them to try out some of the other ads to see if the performance will get better so that they can continue to take your money and run your ads. So when you break down performance, don't just value the CPA number or the ROAS number. Also take into account the volume and how reliable that data is, okay? Before you turn something off, there is a reason why that ad is getting the majority of the spend, and it's because Meta is considering more data points. But if it's getting the most spend, but the spend is not profitable, what you might consider, if you have enough historic data in your ad account, is to use a cost control bid strategy. That will force Meta, or at least incentivize Meta, to try out more of the other ads that you have put into the campaign. Now, if you're just starting out and you still don't have conversion data to look at in terms of optimizing your campaigns, the other metrics you would look at in terms of understanding what is working the best and what ads to continue to focus on would then be like the other conversion events, such as add to cart, initiate checkout, clicks, and those things. And based off of that, you would understand what is working best. So even if you don't have conversion data yet, you can break that down and understand what is likely to be the best performing. And then you can turn off the other ads and continue to make more similar ads, but improve them, of course, until you start to get more conversion data. And with the conversion data, you would then only use that to optimize further. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk a little bit about is the importance of creatives. Today in 2025, in order to get the most out of Meta ads, you need to double down on creative. So the videos and the images, the ad copy and the headlines and the offers that you're testing in your ads. What people are actually seeing on the front end when you start your campaign, that is what controls the performance in a very, very big way. So as long as you've set up the campaign in the right way, such as I've shown you so far in this video, what you should double down on next is the creative. Now, there's 4 main levers that you can pull in terms of optimizing your creative, and what you should test initially to get the best performance and the best improvements is, number 1, the actual offer that you're advertising. Even if you have the worst creative in the world, but it is enough to effectively communicate the value of your offer, and it's an offer people really, really want, then that ad is going to perform really well. Doesn't matter if it's a shitty video or if it's a shitty image. If they love the offer, if they really want the offer, then it's going to perform well. So when we talk about offer, it's usually discounts, bundles, free gifts, bonuses, a way to make what you're selling really appealing. And I'm not going to go too deep into how many different ways you can test out different offers, but that's where you should start. The offer is the main thing. Now, the next thing you want to test is the different formats. Okay, for many businesses, you have video working the best, but for other businesses, just a static image is going to work the best. And that is because some businesses, if you have a really low ticket products, just communicating the value of that product with a simple static image is more than enough. You don't need people to watch through a 30-second or 20-second video to understand the value of that product. So depending on what you're selling, different formats is going to work differently, but this is something you definitely need to test to understand what is going to be the go-to format for you. And in many cases, you need a combination of all of the different formats, because different formats are being placed differently around the available placements that Meta has. We've seen great performance when we have both video and static and carousel in the same campaign, because in that case, Meta can choose to put ads in different placements that I have available in order to hit that person that are likely to buy at the right time and at the right platform, at the right placement. So sometimes it's a combination of all of them, but in other cases, we see that only video or only static is what's working. So this is definitely something you need to test for your business. Now, the next thing is the actual style of the creative that you're using. Are you using the UGC style content, which means user-generated content? It's basically what you see a lot of influencers make and creators make. It's not yourself, but somebody else, a creator, talking highly about your product or service. Is it more branded commercial style type of ads? Or is it a hybrid, a mix of the two? Figuring out how to basically balance between brand, but also performance, it's really important. And in many cases, you need to lean more towards performance in terms of following direct response marketing principles in order to get your ads to work really well. Putting your logo and really focusing on being careful with the wording and coming off as super boring and corporate, that's not going to get your ads to work, because people on social media skip past the content that just looks like ads. People aren't on social media to consume ads. They're there to consume engaging, entertaining content. So you need to make your ads into type of content that fits into the platform. That's why so many people actually say you should make ads that don't look like ads, because that's how you get people to consume those pieces of content. The last thing, which is also extremely important to test, and it should probably be higher on this list, but it's really hard to understand how to set up the list. All of these are very, very equally important, but testing the landing page and making sure there's a strong alignment between your ad and the creative you have in that ad and the offer you have in that ad with the landing page where people actually land after they click on your ad. So if you have a nice alignment and good consistency between the ad and the landing page, then the conversion rate is going to be higher. And the reason for that is when people click on the ad, they have gotten interested. That's the reason they clicked on the ad. But if they land on something, a landing page, where it's very different imaging or the video that they saw is not there anymore and it looks very different than the ad, then a lot of them are going to drop off. So think of the ad as where you sell the click, okay? You're not necessarily telling them everything about the product. You're just getting them interested enough to click on the ad to want to explore it more. And what you do on the landing page is the actual selling. So you should spend a lot of time building out the landing page, making sure that you continue to sell the product on the landing page, because the ad is essentially just the first step. The landing page is what sells your product. So taking care of concerns they might have, making sure that they feel that your product is going to solve their problem. They will get it in a timely manner. The shipping is not too long. They can trust the payment. They're comfortable with the available payment methods. All of those conversion rate optimization tactics should be applied to your landing page in order to get the most out of your meta ads. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about is how to scale profitably. And there's generally two main ways to scale. There's also a lot of other ways to scale, but the two ones I'm going to be talking about in this video is number one, how to scale your evergreen campaigns. In other words, how to scale the campaigns you're running with on Meta that doesn't have a time-limited promotion in them. It's the campaigns that just continue to run over time and you just continue to optimize them. And I'm also going to be talking about another way to scale, which we've used for a lot of our clients, where we're scaling with separate campaigns that are focused on running promotions throughout the year. So in terms of scaling your evergreen campaigns, once you start to increase the budget, you need to understand what is happening with your campaign. So when you increase the budget, you usually start to see diminishing returns because you're now targeting a colder audience. So the way the algorithm on Meta works is that it always starts targeting people that are the most likely to become customers, the most easy people to convert. So the algorithm always starts finding the lowest hanging fruit, but as you scale the campaign, you would need to go higher and higher up on the tree, and that is people that are more difficult to convert. And what also is really important to take into account is when you start to increase the budget and you go wider, you get more impressions, but colder impressions. The new impressions that you're now getting from people that are less likely interested in what you're selling, these people are harder to convert, so you need different type of ads. So the ad that got the first people to convert, that were easier to convert because they're already interested in what you're selling, is not the same ad that will work for people that's maybe they're not really problem aware yet. They don't really understand. They don't even know that they have the problem that your product or service is solving. So you need different type of angling communication and maybe also different type of creative to convert the new audience that you're basically targeting, the new type of people that you're not targeting. So what's working in the beginning is not the same that's going to work once you scale to a new level. So keep that in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is that there is going to be a demand delay. As you start to target a more colder audience, they need more time to warm up. So when you increase the budget and you go wider, you need to give it time for that demand to be created, warmed up, and then once they're ready to buy, that's when they come in, and that's when you start to see a return on investment in terms of the increase that you did with your budget. So in order to be patient and wait for that demand to come back in fruition and actually turn into sales, you need to apply cost control bid strategies. So I made a separate video on that. It's called the Profit Pulse Scaling Method. You can click the link in the description and watch it after this video. In that video, I simply break down exactly how you set this up and how you scale by using this method, which will allow you to stay profitable and remain patient so that you can wait for the demand that you create once you scale to come back around and turn into sales. Now, the second strategy is going to be scaling with promotions. Now, this one is a little bit more simpler for me to explain to you, because essentially what you do throughout the year, you just look at your historic data. What parts of the year do you have the most amount of sales? What part of the year do you have the least amount of sales? And then you set up a promotional plan for when you're going to run different type of promotions with separate campaigns on Meta. So for example, if there's Valentine's or Mother's Day, that could be a separate campaign where you run with a specific promotion to get a lot of conversions in that period. If there's Easter, if there's summer, you can angle your promotion towards that time of the year to create some urgency so people take action, and also justify why you're having that offer. If you just have an offer but no argument for why the offer is there, then it's not going to imply urgency. But if you call it the January offer, if you call it the Valentine's deal, then people know it's going to disappear when that time is over. So it's going to imply urgency by just naming the offer after the period or the season of that year. And that is going to make the campaign more effective. Now, it's really important that you separate this out into a separate campaign, because we don't want to mess with the optimization process of the evergreen campaign. Essentially, these ads that you run will probably be effective, but you need to turn them off when the promotion is over. So it's really important that you don't mix those ads in with the evergreen stuff, because that's just going to mess with the optimization process. And Meta is not going to know how to allocate budget after you turn these best performing ads off. Now, also keep in mind that you should be slightly careful using this strategy too much. You need to be mindful of where you place these promotional campaigns throughout the year, because if you place them too frequently and you place them in the wrong times of the year, so if you place a promotion where you do a heavy discount in the time of the year where you naturally have a lot of sales, then that might just be eating at your margin. Those sales would maybe come in regardless because of how relevant your product is to that time of the year. As an example, we have one client that's selling clothing that's more suited for winter. They have their best seller products during winter. So because we have most of the sales coming in during the winter period, if we were to run heavy discounts, that would maybe not be necessary. We could maybe run with a lower discount to get people to take action, but we don't want to eat too much of our margin to hurt our profitability, because we know that people are coming to buy the products regardless. So instead, what we do is during the summer when the sales are slower, that's when we apply more heavy discounts, because we want to increase the activity and really make sure that we keep selling even during summer, even though that's not the best time of the year. So being mindful of this, making sure you don't have too many promotional campaigns too frequently, because that could turn into digging yourself into a hole where you now only attract people that are interested in discounts and offers. And a key thing here as well is you don't need to run promotions with heavy discounts. You can add on extra bonuses. If you have new products coming in, launches, you can set up a separate campaign that is focused on the newness that's coming into your store if you have new launches and new products coming in. And you can also add on bonuses, free shipping, stuff like that, instead of discounting the actual product. Because for a lot of brands, it's important that the perceived value of what you're selling remains high. And if you start to basically reveal the margin that you're operating with by using big discounts, that's going to potentially hurt the brand perception and the perception of the value of your product. So make sure you keep that in mind when you plan out your promotional plan for the year. So these are my two favorite ways to scale brands in 2025. And make sure you click the Profitable Scaling Method video in the description below. It's going to be really useful for you if you want to scale your evergreen campaign. Now, I have discussed a lot of different things in this video, and if it feels a little bit overwhelming and you feel like you really need some help, and if you are an e-commerce business looking for someone to come in and help you on a performance basis, you can click the link in the description of this video and apply to work with me and my team. And we can then hop on a call and see if we're a good fit for a partnership and if we think we can help you. Also, because you stayed to the end of this video, I'm going to give you a free bonus, which is my ROAS and CPA break-even calculator. Click the link in the description below and I'll send that right to your inbox so that you can easily calculate the break-even ROAS or the break-even CPA that you need to put into your cost control bid strategy on Meta, and just fill out the numbers and you will understand exactly where to put that, even if you want to scale conservatively, radically, or really aggressively. I have multiple guides within the calculator of how you can apply the number that you get into both Facebook ads, but also Google ads. So make sure you click the link in the description and I'll send that one to you for free. It's become the most popular tool that I have made. I've had hundreds of business owners coming to me asking me for this calculator. So because you watched the video all the way to the end, I'll give you it for free. Just click the link in the description. And also, please, if you have any questions to anything I discussed during this video, make sure you leave a comment down below. like and subscribe, and definitely subscribe, because in my next video, me together with my creative strategist in Strand Media are going to break down some of the top performing creatives in 2025 so that you can actually see clear examples of the best type of ads that are working now today and how they have set up the ad, actually breaking them down step by step to understand how you can use the same frameworks in your own business for setting up creatives for yourself that will perform really, really well. So make sure you subscribe so that you get that video once that goes live. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.